They say childhood ends when you stop being a child. But the truth is, childhood never ends. It hides in your reactions, your fears, your silence. It lives in the way you love, and the way you push love away. When someone raises their voice at you and you freeze, not because of them, but because it reminds you of someone else. That's not the present speaking. That's your past whispering. We've been here before. Every adult you see today, confident or broken, kind or cold, is just a child who learned to survive in their own way, and that survival becomes their personality. We often think trauma means something terrible that happened, but sometimes trauma is what didn't happen. No one held you when you cried. No one noticed when you disappeared into silence. No one said, "I'm proud of you," when you needed it most. That's how the blueprint forms, not in moments of pain, but in moments of absence. The mind is like wet cement in childhood. Every word, every look, every sigh from a parent leaves a mark, even the ones they never meant to leave. And when that cement hardens, it becomes the foundation of who you think you are. Some people grow up thinking they must always be perfect because they learned early that love is conditional. Some think they must never rely on anyone because needing someone once meant disappointment, and some still crave approval from people who remind them of the ones who once ignored them. This is not coincidence. It's wiring your nervous system, records patterns of safety and danger long before you understand what safety or danger even mean. Think back. Do you remember that one moment, small, ordinary, when you realized your feelings didn't matter? Maybe you were told, "Stop crying, it's not a big deal." Maybe you were compared to someone else. Maybe your dreams were called silly. And that day, you didn't just stop crying. You stopped expressing. That's how emotional memory works. It doesn't store words. It stores reactions. The tightening of your chest, the shame of being unseen, the silent promise to never be too much again. Years later, you might find yourself in a meeting, afraid to speak up. In a relationship, apologizing for existing. In success, still feeling like an imposter. And you'll think, "What's wrong with me?" But nothing's wrong with you. You're just living according to a blueprint that was drawn when you were too young to hold the pen. Your brain learns patterns before it learns logic. If safety once meant being quiet, you'll confuse peace with silence. If love once meant pleasing others, you'll confuse connection with self-sacrifice. The mind adapts, not to truth, but to survival. And the most powerful part? You didn't choose this blueprint, but you can rewrite it because the brain, even after years of pain, can be taught a new language, one where love doesn't mean fear and safety doesn't mean silence. It begins by noticing. When you overthink, when you please, when you withdraw, pause and ask, "Who taught me this?" The answer may surprise you because it's rarely your adult self making that choice. It's your inner child, still trying to protect you the only way they knew how. Childhood doesn't just shape your memories, it shapes your meaning of love, worth, and belonging. And until you understand the silent blueprint you carry, you'll keep living by rules you never agreed to, rules written by fear, but followed by habit. The first step isn't to erase the past, it's to see it clearly, because once you see it, you stop being controlled by it. Before you ever looked in a real mirror, you looked into your parents' eyes. That's where you learned who you were, not by what they said, but by how they looked at you. Every glance, every tone, every side became the reflection you carried within. Children don't see themselves, they see their reflection in the people who raise them. And when that reflection is warm, loving, accepting, the child learns, "I am enough." But when that reflection is cold, critical, or absent, and the child learns, "Something's wrong with me." No one teaches you this truth. You don't grow up with self-esteem, you grow up with mirrors. When you laughed, did someone smile back? When you cried, did someone comfort you? When you failed, did someone still believe in you? Because if the answers were no, you didn't just lose comfort. You lost the foundation of self-worth. A child's mind is innocent. It cannot see fault in adults. So when something goes wrong, it assumes it must be my fault. If mom was angry all the time, you thought you caused it. If dad was distant, you thought you weren't lovable enough. You didn't understand that they were broken too, so you carried their pain like it was your punishment. And that's how identity is formed. not from truth, but from interpretation. The emotional mirror teaches you your place in the world. It tells you what love feels like, how much of yourself you're allowed to show, and how safe it is to exist as you. So when the mirror was distorted, your reflection became distorted too. If you had to earn love through achievement, you learned that being loved means performing. If love was withdrawn as punishment, you learned that connection is conditional. If you were ignored, you learned that your voice doesn't matter, and that lesson doesn't fade with age. It follows you into adulthood, into your relationships, your career, your silence. Sometimes, you still search for those mirrors. You chase people who remind you of the ones who first defined you, not because you enjoy pain, but because part of you is still trying to fix the original. Reflection. You want someone to finally see you, so you can believe you were never unworthy to begin with. That's why you may forgive too easily, why you explain yourself to people who never listen, why you crave love that feels familiar, even when it hurts. It's not weakness, it's recognition, your inner child, still looking for the face that says, I see you. You're enough. Let's pause for a moment. Think about your earliest memory of being seen, not in photo, but emotionally. Was there ever a time you felt truly known? That someone looked at you with warmth, not expectation? If not, that absence became your teacher. You learned to fill the silence yourself, through perfectionism, control, or caretaking others, because deep down, you believed love must be earned. This is why many adults struggle with self-worth. They're not fighting the world. They're fighting the reflection left behind by their parents. You might say, my parents did their best, and that might be true, but their best could still leave bruises. Because love isn't just about feeding and clothing a child, it's about reflection, the silent messages that say you're safe. You matter. You can be you. The good news? Mirrors can change. As you grow, you learn to build new ones. A kind friend, a therapist, a partner. Someone who sees the light in you when you can't. They hold up a clearer mirror, one that slowly replaces the old reflection, and eventually, you become your own mirror. You look at yourself with compassion instead of criticism. You talk to your inner child the way your parents should have. You say, I'm proud of you. I understand you. I forgive you for surviving. Because healing doesn't mean erasing your parents. It means accepting that they couldn't see you clearly, and learning to see yourself anyway. When you realize that their blindness was never your fault, you stop living to fix the reflection they left behind. You start defining yourself by your own light, not by the shadows they cast. Some wounds don't bleed, some wounds don't scream, they whisper. And because they whisper, no one sees them, not even you. That's what neglect is. It's not the presence of pain. It's the absence of care. You weren't yelled at, you weren't hit, you were simply unseen, and somehow that invisibility hurt more than anything else ever could. When people talk about trauma, they often picture chaos, shouting, violence, storms, but neglect. Neglect is quiet. It's the sound of footsteps walking away when you needed someone to stay. It's the echo of your own voice, unanswered. It's being surrounded by people, yet feeling like you never truly existed. That's the hidden language of neglect. It doesn't say you are unloved, it says you are not worth noticing. And that message seeps into every cell of your being. You start to learn early, don't ask for too much. Don't cry too loudly. Don't expect anyone to come, because they never did. You begin to shrink, to dim yourself, to become the quiet, well-behaved child who never makes trouble, because trouble means attention, and attention means disappointment. Neglect doesn't teach you how to be loved. It teaches you how to disappear beautifully. Years later, you may find yourself surrounded by people and still feel utterly alone. You may have friends, a career, even a family, but deep down, there's an emptiness, a hollow ache that whispers, you're still unseen. And when someone finally tries to love you, you don't know how to let them in, because love feels foreign, attention feels suspicious, care feels uncomfortable. Neglect rewires your nervous system, teaches you that safety means distance, that silence equals peace, that self-sufficiency is survival. So when love arrives, your first instinct isn't to open up, it's to retreat. Here's the cruel paradox. The child who wasn't nurtured grows up to be the adult who nurtures everyone else. You become the caretaker, the listener, the healer, because giving what you never received feels like redemption. But deep down, every time you comfort someone, a part of you still whispers, "When will someone comfort me?" Neglect leaves invisible scars, difficulty trusting, fear of being a burden, and the constant urge to handle everything. Alone, you don't ask for help because you learned that help never comes. You don't cry in front of people because you learned that tears make them leave. You don't show your need because you learned that need makes you invisible.